So I'm going to go straight in and share my screen. And I am in the PredictWind website. And what I wanted to talk about initially was sort of discuss the platforms that we have. So we have the PredictWind website, so which you can access on any web browser. And then we have the PredictWind app, and you use the PredictWind app when you're on your land-based Wi-Fi. And then you use the offshore app for when you've got low bandwidth situations and when you're going offshore with your satellite connection. So we're in the PredictWind website, and down here there's a lot of information, some really good stuff. But what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to the tools, and just close that so I can see it. And I'm going to click on the tools here, and I'm going to go to weather routing, which is the page I'm on. And but up the top here, I'm going to go into routing preferences. And the reason I'm going in here is I'm going to talk about polar setup again. So yesterday we just talked about the predefined polar here, and there's four settings in total. So the other common setting for cruising sailors especially is to use this sail setting. And so I can go in here and I can say, well, at upwind at 50 degrees and 15 knots of wind, I'm going to do 6 knots. And then when I'm reaching, I'm going to do 7 knots. And then in the downwind, I'm going to do, I don't know, 6.5. I've got a big heavy boat, doesn't go too different, no matter what angle I'm at. But so 50 degrees is a pretty realistic angle to sail upwind. 90 degrees, I'm doing 7 knots, and then downwind at 160, I'm doing 6.5 knots. And so what we do with this setting, so if you can't find your predefined boat or a boat that's like yours, this is a really good way to get your polars set up. We assume that in 15 knots of wind that this is the speed you're going to go. Any less breeze than that, we assume that you'll go slower, and we scale that down. But we don't assume you're going to go faster. So it's a really good way to use the polars if you don't have a predefined polar or you don't have advanced polars. So the advanced polars is the complete opposite to the sail polar. You can add all your rows and columns in here, and you can get really detailed. And on a catamaran where you go quite fast, in the sort of those 110 true wind angles, you might want to set this up. You can add as many or as few lines as you like, but you'd want to test the performance of the polar. So that's the advanced polar. The other polar setting that I wanted to talk about was power. So this is for a power boat. And whilst we use terms like upwind 90 degrees and downwind, that's fine. I mean, so upwind is straight into the waves, 90 degrees. You might go a bit slower in your power boat because, no one likes a beam sea. And then down the bottom here, we've got our maximum speed and 0 knots of wind. And so that, that covers the power boaters out there. So I'm just going to go back to the predefined polar here, and I've got a Beneteau set today. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to go out of here. So, actually, before I do, I'm going to talk about the motoring settings. So if I click this on, that assumes that I'm going to, as soon as the wind speed in the routing is less than 8 knots, I'm going to turn my motor on, and I'm going to motor at 6 knots. And so the router will take account of that. You can turn this on in the offshore app or whichever device you're doing your routing on, you can turn that motoring setting on. The other setting that we can look at up here is the comfort setting. So this again is a good one for cruisers. We can avoid, we can set up the router to avoid certain conditions. You can't go less than 25 knots or 3 meter swells. Basically, if you want to avoid conditions less than that, you probably shouldn't be going out in conditions where you're going to experience that. So yeah, that's the minimum. You know, but you've got to be careful with it because it can cart you all over the ocean trying to find nice flat water. So I'm going to go back to fastest time because I'm just that sort of person. And I'm going to go back to here to my weather routing, and we've got our weather routing loaded. To save those polars, I would press calculate. I've already done that, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to go back to the offshore app. So I will choose a new screen to share and go into the offshore app. So now we're in the offshore app, and this is what yesterday we did a demonstration with the offshore app on the iPad. Today we're going to do it I'm on a Mac, but this is exactly the same as if you were on a PC. So what many people don't realize is that you can use the offshore app with your Iridium Go on a Mac and a PC. Where the PredictWind Offshore App is one of the few apps that can work on a PC and a Mac and talk to the Iridium Go. So it's pretty cool. So what I've got here, today I really wanted to get into some more detail and show some of the things that it can do. And what we're looking at here is actually some ocean currents. And so we've got our weather routing overlaid, and I can run my giant mouse over this, and I can see the wind speed, the speed of the current, and we're looking at the Gulf Stream here. So as you can see, it's pretty cool. We can see all that. We can see the eddies and the main flow up here. But this, being able to see this when you're at sea is pretty cool, because you know you can see whether you've got the wind. I mean, you can see it in the tables as well, but you can see whether you're going to get the wind against tide. So I can move this across, wind against current, and I can move this across, and we go through there. And this weather routing has taken into account the currents here, and so it has tried its best to work. And you'll see that we do actually intersect them at 90 through these areas because they're not working with us. Obviously, there's been reasons why it hasn't brought us out here to take advantage of this. Well, let's scroll across and have a look. I see it does move a bit, so not really worth it. It's also factoring in the wind, and the wind will be a much bigger factor than the currents. So we will go. Just checking that I don't have any messages from Kieran. So I'm going to just change. So down here, I've got the different current models. We have 3 different current models available there, and we also have high resolution current models. So you can choose any of those. The other thing we can do is we can have a look at the sea surface temperature, which I thought I'd downloaded. There we go. And what the relevance of the SST is that you can have a look at this, and we can actually see the Gulf Stream up here. And so we can look at this. The SST is essentially a digitized photograph, and we can have a look at that, and we can look at compare that to our current models and see whether we think they're doing a good job or not, and which model we think is doing a good job of matching that up. So I'm going to go back to the Grib offshore, and we've got our winds again, and I need to stop running my hand over my magic mouse, and have a look at our route. So all right, what else do we want to talk about? Oh yeah, so something question that someone had today is they said, oh, I get 2 days into my trip and you know, do I need to reset the start? And yes, you do. So what we do is we move our green waypoint here to wherever we are. So if you've got an Iridium Go, there'll be a little white dot on the screen showing where you are, and you can move your green waypoint to that spot and you calculate your weather out. And ideally you would be doing that twice a day. So you, after each forecast update, you would be doing a new weather route, and you move your green start waypoint to the to where you are, to where the little white dot is. The other way that you can do that is you can get your GPS position off your chart plotter, and you can grab it up here. No, I don't know whether that's in the way, so I'll just drag it out of the way. But see, up here you can set the lat long for your start waypoint. So you could grab that off your chart plotter, plug it in up there, and it'll move the green waypoint to your current start position. So that's really important. It's might seem obvious, but it can often be overlooked. Righty ho, what else was I going to talk about on this? So let's just have a look at our grid high resolution. So you'll see here that this is this big square here is an 8-kilometer resolution box. They're all broken up into different areas. So if I move my boats back there, they will show that area. Having these high resolution areas and being able to see them is pretty cool. So that brings me to another point. I think we covered it yesterday. I'll just go back to the crib offshore. Was that someone asked, where is the weather routing calculated? And so the weather routing is calculated on our servers. So when you send your position off, when you do your download in the offshore app, it sends that request off to our servers. Our servers calculate the route for you, and then they send that calculation back, and it displays here in the offshore app. And so what is good about that is that you can send a very small file size to get your weather routing. So normally how a lot of other pieces of software work is you've got to download all of the grid files. And so if you can only download, you know, low resolution, your 100-kilometer resolution grid files on your connection, that's all that you can weather route off. So you've got to download everything that to calculate your weather routing. Whereas what we do is we just say, oh, look, Nick's here. I've got his green waypoint is at this lat long and his red one's there. And we know from his login who he is. And so we know what his polars are, and any other settings that I've set up in the offshore app. When I've made that request, they all go through to our servers and it does that calculation. And it is a far more efficient system than any other way of doing it. So a really, really neat way to do it, and by far the most efficient way to use your data is using this method of getting your weather. So what we will do now is I've moved that start waypoint, and we'll just go into the settings here, and I'm going to click on, I've clicked on download over here, and I've got everything's opened up here. And as you see, I downloaded all sorts of stuff, and that's because I'm on land-based Wi-Fi, and I can get everything, and I can leave them. In anything that I don't get later on, it'll stay in there. But what I wanted to talk about is obviously we've got our settings here, and we can control our file sizes. We went through that yesterday. But what we didn't really talk about was sort of our weather routing controls. And so if I click on the settings wheel here, I can come in here and I can change some stuff that for my weather routing requests. So that's what I was just saying, when I send off that piece of data to the PredictWind servers, if I change settings in here, so if I put my motoring settings on, so I'm going to motor at 8 knots if the wind speed gets less than 6 knots, I can change that. I might think, well, my catamaran, you know, I'd rather just motor. So I'm going to motor at 8 knots if it gets below 10 knots of wind speed, because I just want to get there so I can park up in my big catamaran. I've got the tidal and ocean currents turned on. And what's more, I get seasick, so I'm gonna try and avoid this bad stuff. And so I don't want to go out, I don't want to be in more than 25 knots, and I don't want to be in more than 3 meter swell. And so I've got all that turned on, and I can then close out of there, and that's all set in for my weather routing request. And I can do that request. And what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to turn everything off and just get I'm just going to get a new weather app, because I've already got that data there. So, and I'm going to download that. So what's happening now is it's sending that information I put in. It's put where it's got that start point there. It's now sending that information. It's sent it off to the PredictWind servers, and they're now working overtime, calculate, crunching the big numbers, and which is really cool. And then they've gone, all right, we've done all that number crunching, let's send it back. And they've sent it back to me, and I can close that. And I've got my tables, and I've got my summary, my route, my wave, my current. Yeah, so it's all in there. And you'll see where I moved my start waypoint to. Now my route starts from there. This is my new route. And I've still got a nice consistent route with all of the weather models in agreement. When I looked at this previously, I saw that we had a bit of rain. So nothing too, there's a bit of this frontal band here. So because we can see that there, and we're up in the Caribbean area, let's have a look at Cape. And you can see the Cape is following that frontal band. And so what Cape is it's convective available potential energy. And to make it simple to understand, that it means that there's the amount of energy that's in the atmosphere. So what we know is that frontal band that's just in front of us there has actually got a fair bit of bang to it, especially here where we can see these brighter colors. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that particular frontal band is probably going to be have a good whack to it. So if we happen to be sailing in that and we saw the rain start coming, we might reduce sail. If we were down here in the Caribbean and we could see really high Cape levels, if we were doing just a little passage, nipping across here or something, doing some island hopping, and we saw some high Cape levels like this, we would be all right. We can go. The forecast is good. It's 15 knots from the east. We're going to shoot across there. But what we would, if we saw these Cape values, what we would be thinking is, if we see some dark clouds, if we see some rain, looking around, seeing what's going on, we're going to reduce sail, because what that means is those clouds are going to have a good whack to them. We've got a thunderstorm coming. And so basically it's just a heads up. Let's be really aware today that if we see some cloud bank coming, or some, rain coming, that it could be quite a nasty squall. So really great piece of information to have there. And what else do I want to talk about? No, I will go back I'm going to stop sharing the screen because I don't see what anyone's talking about. And okay, so do we want to have a look? Should we have a look at departure planning? So we'll go back to the offshore app and I'll do that. Actually, the question is about on an iOS phone. I can have a look at that. So what we'll do is we will go back to the, I'm trying to decide. Let's go back into the offshore. So I come back into the offshore app and we're going to zoom out and we'll move our start point over here. And see, I've made sure that's still in the water there. And I'm going to go over here to download and let's turn on our offshore grids. But we're going to look at a departure plan. And the start time is going to be now. I can go up here into these settings again where the settings wheel is. And you'll see here I've got departure planning. And I can space my departure date times and I can do anything from an hour up to 24 hours. I'm going to leave it at 24 hours and I'm going to close out of there and I'm going to go next and I'm going to go download all and we're going to get a departure plan. And so once again, it has sent my request off to the PredictWind servers. They're calculating it and they're going to send it back. And because I got the grids this time, it's downloading those as well. So that all happened pretty quickly because we're on the land-based connection today. You can see my departure plans come back. And this is a pretty good one for us to cover because there's definitely a specific way to look at this. So there we go. All those files are downloaded. And I'm going to click on close. And what I want to do here is I want to look at the summary. And really this is what the departure planner is all about, is the summary and the tables. And so I've got the GFS model and the ECMWF model here, and I've got the 23rd of October, 24th of October, 25th of October, 26th of October. And my passage times, I've got my maximum wind speed for each of those days. If I left at that time, maximum wind speed for this passage that's going to take me sort of 2 to 3 days. And I've got my maximum wind speed, I've got my minimum wind speed, I've got my average wind speed. Down here, I've got my time upwind, my time reaching. So I've got all of these parameters here and I want to decide which day to leave. And I can look at this pretty quickly and I think I want to leave on day one. I want to leave now. And the reason is I've got a lot of reaching. I've got 78% reaching in the GFS and the ECMWF has me reaching 83% of the time. And I want to go reaching. I don't want to smash around going upwind. See if I can leave on day 2 and day 3 and day 4 is not as bad, but these guys, I'm 70% upwind. You know, I don't want to get divorced a third time, you know, taking my wife out when I'm beating upwind 86% of the time. Nobody's going to enjoy that. So we're going to leave today because we get to reach. We all want to go reaching. So we can look at this on the map and people go, whoa, what am I looking at here? You can have a look and how you actually see what's going on there as you press play. So there's the boats leaving on the first day. There's the boats leaving on the second day. I'll just scroll that up a bit. And there's the boats leaving on the third day and the fourth day. And so we're still on the Cape map there, aren't we? Let's go to the wind map. But yeah, that first day, let's go back. Number 1, she's pretty much a rumline route. So why wouldn't we, you know, and we know it's reaching. So, and we can see that here in the wind model. And yeah, as you see, if we wait a bit longer, if we fluff around at the dock, we haven't got a much fun trip really. So yeah, that's sort of a very quick rundown on departure planning, and I'm just going to see what Kieran's telling me that I need to talk about. I thought I had talked about ocean data and routing. Let's go back there. So what we can see here is, even though I've done, so here's my weather, I've got my weather route there from before. So my departure planning isn't showing there, but I can see my weather route and my ocean currents are still here. The ocean, yeah, so I'm not totally sure exactly what you wanted me to recap on there, but if I'm on the professional version of PredictWind, these currents are taken into account. You can't see my finger, so I should move this. Oops, the old keen hand. These currents are taken into account with my weather routing, so they are used in the calculation. It is obviously the wind is a big factor, but they will try and take advantage of these ocean currents in the weather routing. All right, I think what I should do is let Kieran have a talk. She's going to talk about some Iridium Go stuff, and I'm going to stop talking for a minute. So I will stop sharing my screen, and I will hope that Kieran is going to turn on her camera. Here she is. Hi, Kieran.
Hello, how are you? Thanks,
Pretty good. Pretty good. It's a bit lonely without you, though.
Oh, sorry. So you can see we're set up from different locations today. We had a few technical issues with internet, so we're sorry about that. Okay, so just based off some of what happened and what was talked about overnight and questions that came into support, I thought I'd just refresh a little bit about the Iridium Go, the activation, the plans, things like that. So let me just grab my notes. So first of all, one of the biggest things that we see in support is confusion about the PredictWind website versus the satellite connection. So we have two parts to PredictWind. We have our forecasting service, and then we also sell the Iridium Go, and we have the airtime plans that go with it. So they're two separate parts of our company. So there's two things that you need to make the Iridium Go work and to be able to get your weather offshore. You need to have the PredictWind forecast subscription, either the standard or professional level. And then on top of that, another service is the airtime plan. And what that does is that connects you from the Iridium Go to the satellite so that you can make the calls, send the text messages, download emails, and download weather from any company you want. So you can do that, and then you have our forecast subscription, standard or pro, so that you can get our weather and our routing, which is awesome, and our departure planning and all of that. So that's quite a common confusion. So it's really important to understand that part of it. The other thing that people get confused about is the different platforms that we talk about. And I saw a little bit of it again tonight, just with people saying, well, what's Nick using here? So we have, a lot of different ways that you can see our weather forecasting. We have the PredictWind website on your computer, through Safari or Google Chrome. You can go to predictwind.com. On that website, you can do everything. You set your polars, you can look at a location specifically, you can look at maps and wave maps, and you can set forecast alerts. You can do weather routing, departure planning, control your GPS tracking. All of that is done through the forecast website. Most of that stuff can also be done through the PredictWind app on your phone or on your tablet. So the PredictWind app and the PredictWind forecast website are designed for online use when you've got either an internet connection or a cellular connection. As soon as you go offshore, you don't have that facility, and so we designed the offshore app specifically for offline use. So once you head offshore, you always use the offshore app, But when you get back into port, you can go in, you can use your computer, you can use the PredictWind app. And so there's lots of ways to get all of our information. So it's just, that's another really important thing to get your head around, that we've got all these different platforms. The PredictWind forecast website is like the mother of all things. That controls the polars and things like that. So if you get a subscription to our standard level, it covers you across all of those platforms. So you can use up to 4 devices in any 6-hour period. So you can use your work computer, your phone, and your boat computer and have still one spare, and that's fine, okay? Right, other things that just had some questions about. So the standard level of subscription pricing for the forecast subscriptions, we sell 3-month and 1-year subscriptions. Again, this is for our weather forecasting. So the standard level is $249 for the year, or $99 for 3 months. This is in US dollars. The professional level is $499 for 1 year, or $249 for 3 months. So those are our prices for the standard level of subscription and professional level. Now I'm going to move on to the Iridium Go and the satellite airtime, so different to the forecast. We had quite a few questions about why you need multiple SIM cards. We always recommend that you get extra SIM cards, and people don't understand why. So the reason is that it's the cheapest way to stop and start your service. Most of our cruises are intermittent. You know, they may cruise seasonally, so you might cruise for the summer and then you winter your boat. If you are using the Iridium Go, you don't want to have it going for 12 months of the year. You don't have to pay for it all the time. At PredictWind, we offer a month-by-month contract. So as long as you cancel by the end of the month, you won't get charged for the following one. When you cancel a SIM card, you lose your Iridium phone number and you don't pay any more money until you want to start the service again. If you did want to start the service again, Iridium will, you could use the same SIM card, but they will charge you $250 to do that. So we don't even offer that because it's just a waste of money. The best thing to do is to have a stash of separate SIM cards, unused, in your chart table, and when you need the service again, you just activate a new SIM card. At PredictWind, we have no activation fee, and we prorata the first month. So you're only going to pay for the, if you activate it halfway through the month, you only pay for that half of the month. So that's the best thing to do. Some people, it's really important that they keep their Iridium phone number, and if that is important for you, then you can drop down to the basic plan, so you can change plans month by month. The basic plan is only $59.95 per month, and that will keep it ticking over so that you keep your phone number. Most people don't really care about their phone number, they just share their new one when they activate their new SIM card with their family and friends. So I hope that clarifies some of that. The SIM card will stay active for as long as you use it. So we keep charging you monthly, and we rely on you telling us that you don't need it anymore. And you control that in your satellite portal online. You can go online, you can change plans, deactivate, activate SIM cards. It's all designed for you to do it. And if there is a problem, just email into support and we'll help you through it. Someone asked about the minutes. So like, for example, on the unlimited plan, you get 150 free minutes per month of voice calling. Those don't roll over. So they are allocated to you per calendar month from the 1st to the 30th, 31st of the month. On the next month, you get a new 150 minutes. They don't roll over. Again, we don't have the option to put the SIM card on hold as such. You either drop it down to the basic plan or you stop it and then activate a new SIM card when you're ready to go again. I'm just looking through my notes here to see what else. So yeah, there was quite a few questions I was surprised about. I mentioned in the webinar yesterday about the Iridium Messaging and how it was really good to use the Iridium Messaging website. So what happens is the Iridium phone number is like a really expensive number to call. A lot of telecommunication companies won't even let you call that number or text that number because it's very expensive. it costs about $10 a minute for me to call from my cell phone to an Iridium phone in New Zealand, and it's about the same in America. So the best way, like if I'm at sea and my mum wants to get hold of me, she messages me through that website, through the Iridium Messaging website, and she can do that for free. She puts in my phone number from the boat, and she'll say something like, call me, not urgent. And then I call her back using my 150 free minutes. And so I'm using up the minutes I already have, and it's not costing her anything. So that website's a really good way to manage texting for free. Just very briefly, a couple of other questions people have asked. Is it better to keep the Iridium Go plugged in all the time, or keep it, just charge it as needed? We recommend that you keep it plugged in all the time, and especially because when you're doing the PredictWind GPS tracking, we help you set up the Iridium Go so it sends messages every hour to us, and then in turn we update your GPS tracking page. So it's better to keep the Iridium Go charging all the time. A few people asked if the Iridium Go really needed the external antenna. Was it that important? Absolutely, it is really important. What happens is you have the Iridium Go mounted downstairs in your nav station on the bulkhead or something. This downstairs isn't going to get a very good reception. So the external antenna plugged in here is going to mean that this can be downstairs safe and dry, but you're going to get the fantastic 5 bars that you need with full view of the horizon from the external antenna. I think that's about it. Nick, is there anything else you can think of that I need to talk about?
No. Just checking. I'll just have a look at the questions there.
Well, I do have one other thing on my list. Some people asked about the SOS and GEOS service. So GEOS is a free service offered. They are in partnership with Iridium. It's a monitored safety and security service, and if you sign up to GEOS, they will coordinate rescue and SOS services if the SOS button is pushed. So there's a couple of ways to manage the SOS with the Iridium Go. You have 2 options. You can either plug in the number of a friend or family member that you want to get the SOS messages, or you can send every time if you push the SOS button, GEOS will get notified, all your family and friends, whichever one you program into the unit. For me, I've got a lot of yachting friends around the area, so I would put in, my brother or somebody, Nick probably, to come and rescue me. But a lot of people, GEOS is very important to them. And then you can add on to GEOS, you can add on Medivac, helicopter rescue, things like that at a cost. So it's a free service. They'll organise and coordinate the rescue service. And then you can add on after that.
Just don't add anyone that's got a weak heart.
Because what happens is when you push the SOS button, whoever you've got programmed will receive a message every 5 minutes saying there's been an SOS has been activated from this Iridium Go with this latitude and longitude, and that's it. Every 5 minutes they will keep receiving that message until you deactivate the SOS. Yeah. So if you've got a friend or family member in there, they're going to get that.
Yeah, I received it one time when John and I were playing around with it and testing it, and I didn't know who it was from, and I thought that it was a customer, and I was freaking out. Oh, something's happened. And John messaged me and goes, "No, that's just me testing it." All right. So, anything else, Kieran?
No, that's about it from me.
Let's just have a quick look at the questions and see if there's anything that anyone wants us to talk about. Not that I can see. What I will sort of finish up saying is that if you do have questions for us, we're happy to answer them. Kieran, that has been talking, she's the head of our support team. She's amazing. And, we're here to help you. So if you want to know about anything, there's no dumb questions. We even have that rule at PredictWind. if you know, internally, there's never a dumb question. If you think, oh, should I ask that? It seems a bit silly. Ask it. It's not silly, because often sometimes there's things that are overlooked. Every time someone does ask a question that we haven't specifically answered somewhere, we'll update our help manuals and that sort of thing, or our support desk answers that help us to answer all the questions. Also, if you do have specific questions for webinars, we're happy to do more webinars. I personally could probably just sit there and talk about different ways of using the offshore app. In both these webinars, we've really only skimmed over the surface of what the tools can do. PredictWind is definitely one of those services that the more you scratch the surface, the more that's there. We try really hard to educate users on what we've got, but it's actually, everyone uses the tools differently, and so until you find your way of using it and what's important to you, and that can even be just for where you are in the world. There's different things that are important, or the area that you're sailing in, or the type of sailing you're doing. So there's lots of ways to use it. I love using the offshore app especially, and spend a lot of time playing around with it for my own sailing. We love our job and talking about it. So if you want to ask us questions, go for it. Anyway, I think we'll wrap that up about now, and our support desk is always there for any questions you have, and we're more than happy to chat with you. So
just so you can get hold of us on support either through email, support@predictwind.com, or if you go to our website, we've actually got a chat button, and that will come through to our support centre as well. So we've got support staff. We're generally based in New Zealand, but we've got a couple in France as well, and so we try to cover about 20 hours of the day. So we'll aim to get back to you within 12 to 24 hours.
Yep. Cool. Thank you everyone for coming back and watching again, and we really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you somewhere sometime.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. See ya.
Bye.